Good afternoon and welcome to Pan-African News on Pan-African Television with me, Maud, Anane and Nartey. We should be live on Facebook at Pan-African Television, and a very good afternoon to our 46 African countries. Now coming up in our bulletin, Speaker of Parliament chats warpath with the executive over budgetary cut for the judiciary and legislature. Parliament commences debate on the 2021 budget statement and economic policy as the minority punches holes in the budget. La Traditional Council furious over unauthorized encroachment by military. In business, government introduces financial sector cleanup tax. This and many other stories, including sports, international from our international partners, and entertainment coming up shortly. Stick and stay. To our very first story, the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Kingsford Sumana Bagbing, has sent a clear signal to the executive that Parliament will not be shadowed into infringing the 1992 Constitution. Alban Bagbing was reacting to a letter written to Parliament by the Presidency informing the House about cuts in the budget estimate for the judiciary and the legislature.
What they recommended was a reduction in the capex of the judiciary by 77,482,591. The letter continues. In view of the reduced fiscal space in the national budget as a result of statutory and debt service obligations, we cannot accommodate the request by the Judiciary and Judicial Service. We kindly suggest that Judiciary and Judicial Service operate within this new budget while we explore opportunities to increase the allocation in subsequent years when revenues improve and debt has stabilized. Parliament is respectfully requested to keep the estimates of the judiciary and the judicial service within the expenditure ceilings provided above. This will enable government contain tests within the overall fiscal space for 2021. As Speaker of Parliament, I am unable to accept the letters and communicate same to the Honorable House. As the wording and import of your letters do not communicate a recommendation as stipulated by Articles 127 and 179 of the 1999 Code and Section 15A of the Parliamentary Service Act 1993 Act 460, but an imperative to Parliament to keep within the expenditure estimates which have been set by government. Indeed, the provisions of the Constitution and statute referred to above require the President to lay the estimates of Parliament and the judiciary before Parliament, quote, without to the estimates, but with, quote, recommendations that the President may make on them, unquote. I note, however, that in the budget statement and the expenditure estimates laid on Friday, the 12th of March 2021, the, quote, recommendation of the President were laid instead of the original estimate that was submitted by Parliament and the Judiciary. Consequently, I return the attached letters for the consideration of Mr. President in the light of the above. To determine the budgets is not for the executive. We have the final power to approve or disapprove. And so what the Constitution has done is for them to make recommendations and to negotiate during the deliberations of the budget before the House. It is not for the executive to impose ceilings on the judiciary or parliament. We have to do the proper thing. And so during the consideration of the estimates, honorable members are concerned, take that on board. At the end of the day, come and inform us as to the negotiated figure, not the ceiling that has been given by the president. That is not the intent of the 1992 Constitution. If you do otherwise, I, as your speaker, will not append any letter for some. I mean what I say.
Away from that, in a bid to ascertain and ensure the adherence to COVID-19 protocols by especially teachers and pupils in the Awoswase electoral area in the Tiwa East District of the Eastern Region, the assembly member of the area and community leader, together with a journalist, have taught basic schools in the Awoswase to sensitize teachers and pupils on the need to fully adhere to the protocols by the President's directive on the COVID-19 protocols. During the tour, we apologize for that. Now, still in Parliament has commenced debate on the 2021 budget statement and economic policy. Members from both sides of the House have signed reasons whether or not the 2021 budget should be approved and passed by Parliament.
Call on all members of this House that as a government program has been put before us, and as a government request of us to support its revenue measures, we all rally behind the government, pass these revenue measures and approve this budget, raise the resources that are required, and most importantly, Mr. Speaker, ensure that the resources are put to the uses for which they have been advertised. Because, Mr. Speaker, for all of us members of Parliament who demand road projects in our constituencies, if government desires to increase the road tolls marginally, to raise more resources and ensure that our contractors are paid on time so that our roads are done, it is something that will benefit our constituents and will benefit us as well. For all of us who complain that the President's promise that Accra should become one of the cleanest cities in Africa within a period of time, that promise has not materialized. I am sure that if we pay a little extra and those funds are put to the proper use, and we're able to make not just Accra, Kumasi, Takoradi, Tamale, and our other cities the cleanest in West Africa, it will serve our constituents well and serve us well. Mr. Speaker, I call on colleagues in this House to support the budget statement and economic policy of government, to approve these measures so that we can mobilize these resources and get back on track as to where Ghana was before we were hit by these challenges.
Now, former Deputy Finance Minister Dr. Tuforsen said Parliament is responsible for the alleged financial misrepresentation in the budget.
Is to track the fiscal part. That Ghana cannot blame COVID entirely as we encounter an economic mess. Mr. Speaker, in fact, the problem indeed started in the year 2018. And no one should make an attempt to blame COVID for the economic mess we are going through. So, Speaker, I said this because, the Speaker, if you were to look at the fiscal as presented to us by our Minister of Finance then, the Speaker, we were told that the deficit for the year 2017 was 4.8%. Simple put, the Speaker, Government of Ghana could not raise enough revenue to be able to cater for its expenditure, to the extent that in nominal terms we had to raise an amount of 12.2 billion Ghana cedis as debt to support the budget. This means that, Mr. Speaker, the government inherited a public debt of 120.3 billion. Of that amount, Mr. Speaker, additional 12.2 billion was added to the public debt. Mr. Speaker, if you are to adjust for the exchange rate valuations in our external debt, you will notice that indeed our public debt for the year 2017 moved from 120 billion to 142.5 billion. Mr. Speaker, I wish to use this opportunity to clearly commend the Minister of Finance for the year 2017. Mr. Speaker, this is so because, in fact, you give credit when credit is due. That in the year 2017, the government indeed undertook some fiscal consolidation measures. Mr. Speaker, sadly, Mr. Speaker, we lost our way in the year 2018. We lost our way in the year 2018, and the situation started getting worse. Mr. Speaker, in the year 2018, again, our minister responsible for finance came to us, informed this honorable House that the fiscal deficit was 3.9% of GDP, representing 11.6 billion Ghana cedis. Simply put, Mr. Speaker, we borrowed only 11.6 billion Ghana cedis to increase our public debt at a time of 142.5 billion. Mr. Speaker, I beg to put this on record that that is not true. That is not the case, Mr. Speaker. The situation of misreporting actually started back in 2008. Mr. Speaker, now, contrary to what our minister responsible for finance informed us, the IMF says that in the year 2018, our deficit was 7% and certainly not 3.9% of GDP. Mr. Speaker, clearly you could see that the part is increasing and not actually reducing, as we've been told by the budget statement. Mr. Speaker, again, if you are to track the year 2019, you will notice that, as we've been told, that the minister informed this House that the fiscal deficit was 4.8% of GDP. If you are to express it in nominal terms, it means that we spent more than we could raise by an amount of 16.89 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, what this means is that we added 16.8 billion Ghana cedis to our public debt. Mr. Speaker, once again, this has proven not to be the case. Mr. Speaker, again, this has been corroborated by the IMF Article 4 document. Mr. Speaker, my worry is that an amount of 5.1 billion Ghana cedis was excluded from the fiscal. Again, an amount of 1 Ghana cedis being a financial sector cost, again, was excluded from the fiscal. Mr. Speaker, so you could see the misreporting from day one, from 2018 to 2019. Mr. Speaker, this simply means that in the year 2019, Government of Ghana increased our public debt in nominal terms by 25.2 billion Ghana cedis. 25.2 billion, and certainly not 16.8 billion Ghana cedis. That was the financing part. Mr. Speaker, as I said, we lost our way back in 2018. Mr. Speaker, this increased our public to 217.9 billion. My worry is that this August House, we have allowed the ministry responsible for finance to always come and present a financial statement, government policy contrary to what everyone else in the world is using. Mr. Speaker, we are also part of the problem. Parliament of Ghana is part of the problem because, Mr. Speaker, we fail to check them. We fail to point to them that indeed what they are doing is wrong. Mr. Speaker, that is why the budget office is urgently required. Mr. Speaker, we need a budget office to be able to check the ministry responsible for finance. Mr. Speaker, this is simple. The debt accumulation and the impressions created that our government is consolidating fiscal, for me, is something that we should send a strong signal to the Ministry of Finance. Mr. Speaker, I want to put on record that for us, we members of Parliament of this side of the House, we should send a strong message to the Minister responsible for Finance and the Ministry of Finance that until these anomalies are corrected, we will not be part of the passage of this budget statement.
So that was Dr. Tofo Singh accusing Parliament for being responsible for the alleged financial misrepresentation in the 2021 budget. Now, Isaac Adongo, on his part, accused government of financial engineering. Isaac Adongo also indicated that government has understated the national debt stock.
Our budget deficit has been massaged by 25 billion Ghana cedis. Hey. Mr. Speaker, the minister responsible for finance reported that our foreign financing of the budget deficit was only 31 million Ghana cedis. 31 million Ghana cedis and nothing more and nothing less. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the budget statement itself, particularly under Appendix 2A, which you find under paragraph page 205, it makes it quite clear that the loans that were contracted for our projects, which we call the project loans, amounted to about 6 billion Ghana cedis. Mr. Speaker, project loans cannot be used to amortize loans. They must be spent on specific projects, and there is no way you can reduce your deficit financing by using that to pay. So 6 billion unequivocal amount of money cannot be found there. Mr. Speaker, there is also program loans, and I was very sad to see a report in the budget that says that our program loans was only 388 million. Mr. Speaker, in the minister's own document, and here I refer to Appendix 12B, which is Performance Summary of Funding Sources, and you can find that under page 275. Mr. Speaker, this page is listing all the program loans that we contracted and spent in the year. And this is the minister himself speaking in page 275. He says that we got an amount of 1.3 billion from the World Bank, IPF, and Africa Development Bank, out of which we spent 512 million Ghana cedis. He says we also got another $65 million, which amounted to 377 million, out of which we spent 343 million. He says that there's also a fast-track COVID-19 facility of about 130 million from the World Bank. That amount we spent it entirely, and it is about 754 million. He says that IMF gave us the equivalent of 585 billion, 5 billion 855 million, out of which we spent 5 billion 566 million. Again, he says the Africa Development Bank also gave us 409 million, out of which we spent 389 million. Mr. Speaker, the minister says the European Union also gave us 504 million. We spent the entire amount. Mr. Speaker, how can all this put together, somebody will look us in the face and say that he only got 388 million? I can't imagine this. And this is House of Records. I don't know who did that to my big brother. So come and read this to us. Mr. Speaker, the entire amount, if you put all this together, from program loans that the minister himself is reporting, is 7.5 billion Ghana cedis. That money has disappeared from our deficit. And we are now dealing with 388 million, which creates a Koshoko of 31 million foreign. If you put all that together, our foreign financing of the budget comes to an amount of 25.155 billion Ghana cedis, and not 31 million, Mr. Speaker. If you add that to our domestic financing of the budget of 45 billion, Mr. Speaker, we get a deficit of 70.798. These are monies we have spent. What it means is that expenditure totaling about 25 billion have disappeared from our expenditure framework. Completely disappeared from our framework. And these are expenditures relating to COVID-19 program expenditure. This financial engineering must stop. And Mr. Speaker, this House must insist that the right things are done in order that we get credibility as the political class of our country. And this is the kind of gerrymandering that we are facing, and this is what they use to become better managers of the economy. These are better manipulators of the economy, and they cannot happen.
Now, a governance expert come lecturer, Dr. Mohammed Abubakar Marzouk, has reacted to the ongoing debate in Parliament on the 2021 budget statement and economic policy. According to him, the partisan manner in which it's being conducted clearly undermines national unity and impedes the consolidation of our embryonic democracy.
These views are normal. They are part of our democratic structure. At any time at all a budget is presented, you will definitely have MPs trying as much as possible to interrogate the budget. But what is not good, in fact, in my thinking, is that largely these debates are conducted on partisan lines. And I believe that the manner in which the debate is conducted undermines national unity and democratic consolidation. It is important for all of us to understand that ours is multi-party democracy, and whatever we do should be in the interest of the state. This is not to say that parliamentarians should not defend their political ideologies or partisan stance in parliament, but I believe that we need more of bipartisan nature of discussion so that at the end of the day it will be the success and victory for the mother Ghana. Yeah, I think it is all part of the reflection of the kind of politics we pursue in this country. First of all, we should also agree that the caretaker minister has a responsibility to conduct itself in a manner that will promote national unity. And of course, the caretaker minister should also understand that he is expected to do the right thing. So if in the opinion of parliamentarians what he has done is not the right thing, of course they have the right to raise red flags. And then the caretaker minister should also understand that once they have the right to raise red flags, it is up to him to also examine his own conduct. Just sometimes it is good to understand that you are wrong or you are right. So it is up to him. He should try as much as possible to do self-reflection, to understand whether what the parliamentarians are saying is right or not. But I believe that it is up to him to do the right thing. And if he does the right thing, the parliamentarians, no matter their political affiliation, should also respond. After all, the caretaker president is not acting.
Away from that, the La Traditional Council has threatened to embark on a series of demonstrations and other lawful acts to recover their lands should President Akufo-Addo, the commander-in-chief of the Ghana Armed Forces, fail to call the military to order. The council is raising concern over what they say are intentional annexation and continuous encroachment of their land by the military, contrary to arrangement in place to release their lands.
The Traditional Council have held negotiations with the government, represented by the former Minister of Lands and Natural Resources, over lands being annexed and encroached by the military. It was pronounced at the end of the negotiations in November last year in the presence of the military and senior officials of the Lands Commission, who were parties to the negotiations from the onset, that parts should be released to the last two, and that the parts required by the military should be acquired through due process. The parties were asked to exercise restraint by halting all activities on the land until the agreement is firmed up and boundaries of the last two and the military documented. Speaking to the media after an inspection of lands by members of the La Traditional Council, the trustees of the East Dade Kotopon Development Trust and the coalition of associations in La Kola, Ni Eje Kofe IV, La Shikitele, who spoke on behalf of the La Traditional Council, said the current happenings are very injurious to their position.
We are yet to sign the document, though announcement was made and the meetings that we had, the deliberations were concluded. So we were of the view that no party should come onto the land or do anything until the final decision comes out. But the military have been working on the land. not only where we are standing, but to my left side, getting closer to the airport. If you pass there, you will see that they are grading there, they are working there, which is quite bad and injurious to our position, because if we have had talks and land is going to be released to us, and then you are working on it, when it is time for the land to be released, what are we going to get? And do they also know that where they are working is where it's going to be released to the military? So their actions are quite disturbing to the last two. We have been very magnanimous to the state that most prime lands of La have been used for national interest and for state purposes. The military has taken a chunk of our land, even without proper documentation. The land on which they are, most of them, they do not have proper documents covering them. All that came up when we had the deliberations at the ministry.
You're still watching Pan-African News on Pan-African Television with me, Anane, Nartey. Business is next after this. The Ghana Grid Company, Gridco, has revealed plans to ration power supply to part of the Volta and OT region over the next few days. In a notice to the Electricity Company of Ghana, ECG, Gridco indicated that the outrages would take effect from Thursday, March 18th to Monday, March 22nd, 2021.
According to Gridco, this is to enable them undertake repair works on transformers supplying the two regions. Part of Ho, Adaklu Ahunda, Sugakope, Akachi, Keta, Adedome, and its environs are expected to experience blackouts. This comes on the back of speculations by a cross-section of Ghanaians about a seeming return to the days of erratic electricity supply, popularly known as Doomsaw, following a recent scare. The Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana Grid Company Limited, Jonathan Amwakumba, allayed the rising fear and explained that the nature of the power system value chain made that impossible. He also assured the country and all related stakeholders that none of the key participants in the value chain is resting on their oars to an effort to maintain stability, accessibility, consistency, and reliability of power supply at all times.
Government is seeking to introduce a financial sector cleanup levy of 5% on profit before tax of banks to help defray outstanding commitment in the sector. Minister for Parliamentary Affairs Lawrence Osei-Mensah-Bonsu, who presented the 2021 budget statement and economic policy to Parliament on behalf of President Akufo-Addo, said this levy will be reviewed in 2024.
Sector cleanup and the refund of monies to depositors have restored investor confidence and protected the hard-earned savings of millions of Ghanaians. However, this has come at a huge cost of over 21 billion to government and indeed to the state. Mr. Speaker, government will therefore introduce a financial sector cleanup levy of 5% on profits before tax of banks to defray outstanding commitments in the sector. The levy will be reviewed in 2024. Road tolls. Mr. Speaker, to maintain improvement on our roads, and all of us in this house every now and then demanding of the Minister for Roads improvements in our road network and indeed improvements in our roads. Mr. Speaker, to maintain the improvement, government will review existing road tolls and align them with current market rates. This will form part of the framework for promoting.
Now let's take a look at the interbank CD performance against some of the major currencies. Now let's take a look at a dollar, where dollar is buying at 5.724 and selling at 5.729. Pounds is buying 7.947 and selling at 7.995. Euro is buying at 6.805 and selling at 6.821. Naira is selling at 71.210 and selling at 71.210. CFA is buying at 96.291 and selling at 96.387. That's how we wrap up on our business stories. Up next is our international news from our international partners, People's Dispatch. Amid growing accusation of vaccine hoarding by global north countries and patents blocking vaccine production, researcher and filmmaker Bernard Giglia writes about the importance of supporting Cuba's vaccines, which will be available to all.
The life of just one person is worth more than the private property of the richest man. This is what's written on the Calixto Garcia Public Hospital in Havana, Cuba, as a statement to the country's commitment to free public health care and to putting people before profit. I know this about Cuba because in March, at the onset of a global COVID-19 pandemic, I spent a week in the ICU at Calixto Garcia. I had been hit by a speeding ambulance and Cuban doctors saved my life, operated on me twice and nursed me to stability before putting me on a private medical evacuation flight back to the US. All of this, including the flight, was free to cost to me, covered by Cuba's government-run insurance for foreign visitors. From my hospital bed, as the global emergency around me escalated, I witnessed how the Cuban government swiftly mobilized resources to protect its citizens from COVID-19, a home testing for anyone with symptoms, door-to-door preventative education in the most vulnerable neighborhoods, and coordinated isolation when necessary. While deaths soared towards 100,000 in the U.S., Cuba was able to get the average daily COVID-19 related deaths close to zero for most of May to August. Cuba's humanist approach when it comes to health was not new to me. In 2013, I co-directed a documentary on a free hospital in northern Honduras. The doctors there, all from Afro-Indigenous Garifuna communities, had been trained in Cuba at the Latin American School of Medicine for free. Cuba created the Latin American School of Medicine in 1999 to train doctors from the poorest regions of countries around the world, including the US, providing full scholarships of 6 years tuition, room, and board, with the hope that these doctors would return and provide accessible and preventative health care in their communities. The American School of Medicine was born as a response to of Hurricane Mitch in 1998 and has trained tens of thousands of doctors from over 110 countries since then. Cuba is now poised to play an important role in global effort to curb the pandemic. New variants in South Africa and Brazil, all with yet unknown implications for vaccine effectiveness, have shown us that any effort to achieve herd immunity is only as good as it is accessible equitably across the globe. Yet, as predicted, the global north is outpacing the global south dramatically in vaccination. On February 3, Anthony Fauci said, in an event hosted by Journal of the American Medical Association Network, that developing COVID-19 vaccines is not a race. We want everybody to get over the finish line, he assured. Dr. Fauci mentioned the Russian and the Chinese vaccines and later suggested that the U.S. should help other countries strengthen via vaccine manufacturing capacity to promote more vaccinations globally. At no point did he mention Cuba. Thanks to an established publicly funded biotechnology program, Cuba currently has 4 vaccine candidates. One of those vaccines, Sobirana 02, started phase 3 clinical trials early in March. Another candidate, Abdallah, started phase 2 trials in February. Both vaccines are being developed by public research institutions and are the most promising candidates in Latin America. The fact that Dr. Fauci failed to mention these candidates is disappointing. The U.S. and other governments should set aside antiquated hostility towards Cuba and support the development and distribution of its vaccines. The first step is to take the vaccine candidates seriously and remove any barriers presented by U.S. sanctions. Second, global actors should support Cuba's effort to scale up manufacturing should they decide to pursue this. Unlike current vaccines which are hoarded by the global north, Cuba's vaccine candidates have the potential to become the people's vaccine that activists and scientists around the world have called for. For example, the World Health Organization's COVID-19 Technology Access Pool makes it possible to have the first vaccine ever licensed openly on the global stage. While the World Health Organization's better-known COVAX program aims to pool procurement and distribute vaccine doses more equally, it does nothing to address the underlying intellectual property regime that produces monopolies on vaccines and limits their manufacturing. The CTAP was created at the onset of a pandemic to pool the rights to life-saving technologies and facilitate a truly equitable and effective vaccine rollout, but no country or company has chosen to license through the CTAP to date. Regardless of the mechanism, Cuban officials have stated a clear intention to, once again, place people before profit. Cuba's strategy to market the vaccine is a combination of things. First comes humanity and the impact on health, and in second place is our industry needs to sustain sufficient production of the vaccine and medicines for the country, explained Vicente Veres of the Finlay Vaccines Institute of Cuba for Prensa Latina TV. We are not a multinational where returns on investment are the number one reason for existing, and improving health is just a consequence. We work the opposite way. For us, it's about achieving health. The returns are a consequence of achieving health, but they will never be the priority. Having an adequately tested and accessible vaccine from Cuba will, as the Sobirana 02 name suggests, contribute to the autonomy of countries like Cuba and nearby Haiti to safeguard their populations free from dependence on multinational monopolies. But it also might be the saving grace for the botched global vaccine rollout that leaves us all susceptible to new strains. The US should support Cuban vaccine development because it's good for us and it's good for the world.
A very big thank you to our international partners, People's Dispatch. Up next is the sports news. Midyama Sporting Club assistant coach Mohamed Obeng Hamza has resigned from his post with immediate effect. Obeng tendered in his resignation letter to the club's management, citing personal reasons for his decision.
About a month ago, his boss, Samuel Bwedu, quit the Yellow and Moves outfit to join Accra Heart of Folk. Following the appointment of former Elmina Sharks FC head coach Yao Ichampon as Samuel Bwedu's replacement, Mohamed Hamza Obeng has been undermined by management. The Takwa-based side have named Joachim Yao Ichampon as their new head coach and appointed Felix Abuaje as his deputy. A champon worked with him during his stint with the Elmina Sharks. Hamza joined Mediama as first-team assistant coach in December 2018. Before that, Hamza had served as the head coach of Ghanaian Division 1 League side King Faisal. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration from the University of Education, Kumasi campus.
Now, Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua have signed a 2-fight deal to unify the IBF, WBO, WBA, and WBC heavyweight titles. Joshua beat Bulgarian Kubrat Povy in December to retain his IBF, WBO, and WBA titles and set up the prospect of a mouth-watering clash with fellow Britain and WBC titleist Fury.
The eagerly anticipated bout will see all 4 belts contested in the heavyweight division for the first time. Joshua, who holds the IBF, WBA and WBO heavyweight titles, has a record of 24 wins from 25 bouts with a sole loss. Fury, who is unbeaten in 31 bouts, brutally knocked out Deontay Wilder to claim the WBC version in February of last year. The 32-year-old Briton, who has not fought for over a year since his victory, said last month he would fight twice this year. Eddie Hearn, Joshua's promoter, indicated that a site deal would be confirmed next month, adding that offers had come in from 8 or 9 possible venues. He further stated that the hard part is always getting everybody to put pen to paper, but this was a major effort from all parties to get this over the line. Both fights would take place this year, this with the first in June or July, followed by the rematch in November or December. The contract would have the fighters getting a 50-50 split in the first bout and a 60-40 split in favor of the winner in the rematch.
Up next is the entertainment news. As part of our effort to celebrate Ghanaian folktale in the month of independence, our entertainment desk has been furnishing viewers with valuable information on a series of such. Today our focus is on Palogo, an adorable dance of the Ga ethnic group. Let's take a listen.
Palogo is a Ghanaian recreational dance and music associated with the Ga ethnic group, who are traditionally located in the Greater Accra region, which is in the south of Ghana. It started in the early 1960s during the wake of Ghana's independence as an innovative dance style influenced by American rock and roll and giving the younger Ga generations a point of distinction from their elders. Although it was created primarily by young people as a form of entertainment, it contains musical motifs borrowed from older Ga pieces like Gome, Kolomashi and Oge, as well as High Life. The dance, Palogo, was invented by Otu Lincoln and was inspired by a folk tale told by his father when he was 15 in 1956. His friends Okule Foles and Aite Sugar then developed a drum beat to accompany it. The Palogo beat usually uses 3 drums and the lead drummer solos against the rhythm created. Palogo also uses the Gome, rattles and gourd shakers, but the Palogo drum is always the central piece. Palogo music uses 3 types of instruments: nono, fowl, Palogo drums. Nono plays the key pattern or timeline of a music supported by the fowl. It's common to have 3 Palogo drums, an ensemble, in the roles of male voice, female voice, and master drum. In a performance context, groups will create arrangement of movement and accompanying lead drumming, but in a traditional context, the lead drummer will just watch the dancers and improvise slight variations to complement their dance moves, to which the support drums respond. This dance is performed low to the ground with bent knees and a bent back, a frequently featured sexually suggestive motions. It's a constantly evolving style of music and dance, with new lead variations emerging all the time. There is not usually a predetermined sequence of variations, but in general, the music starts at a slow tempo and builds to a faster speed. Initially, many of the dance movements were seen as indecent, to the point where Palogo was almost banned by the government. As a compromise, a version that allowed for more space between dancers was created, and Kwame Nkrumah, Ghana's first president, approved of a new choreography. Since that time, it has become immensely popular, and it is enjoyed both inside and outside of Ghana.
Thank you for your time. This is how we part ways this afternoon. My name is Anane. A recap of the headlines. Speaker of Parliament chats warpath with the executive over budgetary cut for the judiciary and legislature. Parliament commences debate on the 2021 budget statement and economic policy as the minority punches holes in the budget. La traditional serious over unauthorized encroachment by military. In business, government introduces financial sector cleanup tax. Once again, my name is Anane. Thank you for your time. Do well to follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram at Pan African Television. Do have a blessed day.